Hey everybody, Sean here, and I thought I'd just give a quick look at the behind the scenes of Table Reads and how we do our editing process after we've recorded our episodes. We do things a little differently than most podcasts. There's very little editing after the fact. Most of it's done live as we record, like a typical radio show would do. It puts a little more pressure on me while we record because I have to run everything. I have to hit all our sound cues, play our music in the background, all of that stuff while also reading the script and trying to be entertaining. Luckily, I have very entertaining co-hosts that can sort of fill in the gap while I'm distracted with the technical minutia. But it also allows me to be more focused in the part of the podcast that I enjoy and spend much less time in this sloggy editing afterwards part. So what we have here is Adobe Audition, which allows me to record from my board each track individually. So you see this green board at the top where you see I'm talking right now. That's where Mike records. And then here's Josh in purple and Jeff in blue. So I can go in if someone coughs and forgets to hit their mute button or says something that we just don't want in there. Maybe they accidentally let slip some personal information about themselves. I can just snip that out and not have to worry about a jump in the music or cutting off someone else's speech or anything like that. Very, very good for editing, doing it this way. Also, I have separate channels for the vocal effects. If you listen to the show, sometimes you'll hear I'll put on an echo effect on someone. During Lord of the Rings, for example, Gandalf would be all shouty, and I would put the echo effect on him. You know, just like in the movie when he said, Bilbo Baggins, do not take me for some conjurer of cheap tricks. That whole business. So this actually records just the echo effect onto a separate channel, leaving the core audio clean. So if I want to take the echo effect off altogether, I can just snip that part out. Or I can boost it or lower it and, adjust its levels just by adjusting the volume on that track. Which that's so handy. I can't even tell you. So here we've got Farajo, which is software by Rogue Amoeba. It's basically a soundboard. I trigger it with a MIDI pad next to my board. And so that's where you get things like our sound production, like this.
Fade in.
So that's where Fade In lives. That's where I play the intro from. And the intro and the out part of the show are the only parts that have music on that channel. All the other music comes from my iPad, as well as the sound effects like lightning and sirens and typewriter, things like that. It's all now here on this channel. And of course I can, solo that out. So we just listen to that channel. So here's just some music. And then a sound effect is going to come in for some reason. Just a second of typewriter, apparently. Some thunder. So that's all right on that track. And so this is what I get when I have finished recording. Hit save. This is my file. This break here is usually the only... We've got 2 breaks in this one because I did some editing already. This one, however, is where we do our commercial break, where I play the promo for the Looney Tunes Critic, and then my hosting platform, Spreaker, will insert some ads here, which you can avoid hearing if you subscribe on Patreon. Just saying. You get the episode 4 days early with no ads on your own private RSS feed straight into the podcast app of your choice. So keep that in mind. So what I do is I stop recording after the Looney Tunes critic, do a quick save, make sure everything's safe and happy. And then when we come back in, I start recording again so that I have a clean break right here and I don't have to go and search for where that break is because I need to tell Spreaker where to put the ads. So I can just go straight to this break here and look at this time code. So I keep my show notes in the Notes app, and so I just put this here. I've got the intro part or previously on, depending on if it's a part 1 or later. And then I put my break, and that's 3251.980, 3251.980. So I just make a note of that and then move on. And I usually listen just to make sure that all the things hit properly, make sure I didn't hit a wrong button somewhere that I need to edit out. On this particular episode, we had a moment where my phone made a weird noise and we thought it came through on the thing and we discussed it for a minute and it was just really, really distracting. So what I did was I just edited that whole section out. I took out about a minute here. And this is where I do all my editing. I have a different file for mastering, but that's where this all goes. And when we went back in, I said the last line again, and I just split the edit right in the middle of that line so it sounds flawless. As if I was just, like, it was a normal gap. Bruce is a ball of nervous energy. Outside, the rain beats down on his window. See, and I was able to edit that so well because of the nature of this multi-track editing. But typically, if there aren't any mess ups that I notice, I just have this, I make a note of the break, and then I will just mute everything but the audio tracks. So I'll keep me, Josh, and Jeff and our effects tracks, and mute Farajo and iPad. I also have a Skype channel here. I don't really use it too much, but it's there just in case. So now it's just audio tracks. So what I'm going to do, because no matter how well you do gating, if you don't have like a completely professional podcast studio setup, there's going to be a little bleed of audio between mics, especially when someone's being loud. And I go through a normalization process, which boosts some of this audio. And if I take these vocal tracks separately and apply the post effects to them, then any of that bleed over ends up sounding like a weird echo, and it sounds really bad. So the first thing that I do in actually editing is I export the multi-track mixdown of the entire session. And I do that as a WAV file. And I just label it vocals. And I've actually already done that for this file. I've done all of this, so I'm just showing you what I do. I click OK, it takes a few minutes, and then my vocals go out. So then I go through and I mute all those vocal tracks and unmute iPad, do the same thing, name this music as a WAV file, okay, and that goes out, and then I just do it one last time for Farajo, and I name it production, and it also is a WAV. So what I end up with are 3 WAV files, one for all the vocals and effects mixed together, one for the iPad, which has the music and sound effects, and one for Farajo. And then I save this and close it, and then I have this editor. Now, this is a special file because I've got effects set up, a variety of effects for each channel, and they're specific to the vocal mixdown, the music, and the production. So if you see on the vocal mix down, I've got a speech volume leveler, I've got a de-esser, and I've got a parametric equalizer, and those have all been fine-tuned to get the best sound. Music, I've got a speech volume leveler, an amplify, and dynamics processing. And then on production, speech volume limiter, amplify, and dynamics processing. But with different, it's the same things as on the music, but with some different tweaks because this channel needs slightly different things than the other. So what do I do next? I go to Finder and I go to my master files and I have each episode in its own folder. And so I've got vocals and I just drag it in and drop it. And next is music and I drag it in and drop it. And production. Bam, bam, bam. Zoom out to the whole file. So at this point, I go to my vocal track and I go clip, match clip loudness, and I do -19 LUFS. People do anywhere between -16 and -21. I found -19 to be the sweet spot for us. And that's just gonna take a few minutes apparently. I'll do some magic editing and we'll jump to that. And compression, and I can't remember everything that's in there at the moment, but we'll have a look at that. But that's really the key to getting the good audio when you to, just for the vocals, because obviously the vocals are the most important. That's where all your content is. Everything else is just icing. This is the cake. All right, so we're back, and you'll see all of this is much larger now. So we get brighter, clearer voices, and let's just give you a quick look at that. Was a fucking awesome year for comics. Yes, it was. It was a fucking awesome year for comics. By the way, here's the master channel settings. Hard limiter, got a mastering, a second hard limiter, and a multi-band compressor. And you know, all of those have their own settings that are a lot to go into, so we're not going to do all that. We're just going through the editing process. So I then like a little more, I like to give a little boost to my music channel because it can be a little quiet. But if we put it any louder when we record, it makes it hard to think. It's just, there's something about the way the setup is, it's too loud in our ears. So I just go up 3 decibels here. And that's it. I export these 3 waves. I drag them into this other file that's got all these other settings preset. I match the clip loudness to -19 LUFS on the vocals. I boost the music to 3 decibels, and then I export it. And this one I export as an MP3. So I go to my master files, Batman Year 1, episode 111, and I just give it the same name as our session file, Batman Year 1 Part 1, and I save it as an MP3. Save, and one change that I make here is I change it from 192 kbps to 128, and that actually gives it better quality because my host streams at 128 kbps. So if I'm posting 192 or any other bitrate files, then they have to encode it on their end as it goes out to 128. And that takes the control of the audio away from me. And this, if I give them a 128, they'll stream it as it is without any changes, and it will sound better. So that's what I do. put it in the right folder, I give it the right name, I make sure it's 128, and I click OK. And that's it. I've edited my podcast. Typically, me and the guys will do 2 episodes in a night. We'll record them, and then I will go and do this business and get it posted that night. I also try to write the episode descriptions and the previously on for next week's episode while it's all fresh in my head and I've just gone through it. Don't look too closely at that because spoilers, guys. Come on. And that's that. I hope you enjoyed this little look at my behind the scenes editing process. This is going to take longer than I care to wait around to export. And that's it. Please enjoy Table Reads. Once again, do check out our Patreon if you want those ad-free episodes. And yeah, that's it. I'm done.